there. I think what I do think is that if people have got kinks that they want to explore, that it's really good to have communication with your partner. You know, being able to have open conversations around sex is what we need to be able to have good, deep, fulfilling sex.
Welcome to the Prime Life Project podcast, a place to help you unlock your full potential, both mentally and physically, to become the best version of you. Welcome back. It makes me laugh when it does that. We'll keep that on. We'll keep that in outtakes. Welcome back to another episode of the Prime Life Project podcast. I'm your host, Daniel James, and today is going to be an awesome day. I'm joined by Rebecca. I told you I messed this up. Rebecca Dakin, and we're going to be talking about sex. And again, it's something we all do. So if that's something that makes you feel like you want to call up your own asshole, just bear with us. It's going to be absolutely awesome. So Rebecca is a Master Practitioner in NLP, Neuralistic Programming. She's a qualified hypnotherapist and an author. Rebecca doesn't just work like traditional therapists, and she uses her therapy skills alongside her unique life experience to coach women, men and couples to find fulfillment in their relationships with themselves first and foremost, and then with others. Rebecca, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, welcome. Oh, thank you for having me. Welcome to you. Hey, I'm doing the podcast.
We're getting off to a great start here. Like, I've messed your name up. You're welcoming me to it. And breathe. We're restraining Mikey. It's Mikey's nervous energy in the corner from his vertigo. I always do that. Mikey's my scapegoat. Anything with the podcast, like, yeah, it's Mikey. Yeah. It's Mikey.
Mikey. Oh,
I'm really looking forward to this. Like I said, me and you've had a chat. Like I said, quite a few times off air, and we had a really good hypnotherapy session on Friday. Was it Friday we did that?
Yes,
we did. Yes, it was. Yeah. So I know the value they're going to bring to my audience today. And again, especially the topic that we're talking about, just the word sex for some people, like, it makes them go into like complete anxiety and shut down and like don't want to hear it. So I know the value that you're going to bring today is going to be absolutely unreal. But I just want to spend a very, very brief amount of time talking about what actually qualifies you to be talking about sex. And again, I know you're not just a sex therapist, you work at all forms of things. But the main thing that you work on is helping individuals and couples with that side of their life. So can you give us a brief history summary of your life before becoming a therapist?
In a nutshell, I worked as an escort for 10 years. So my experience was very hands-on. I haven't been and got a qualification in sexology or whatever it is they do nowadays. But yeah, my experience was hands-on from 10 years in that business, dating men, women, couples. So I learned a lot about relationships. I learned a lot about people. I learned a lot about sex. And sort of after 10 years of doing that, it's the kind of industry that you can end up getting stuck in, really, because you kind of think, well, what else could I do? You know, what's you know, what other business can you kind of set up and run without actually any initial outlay, without any qualifications, with such high earning potential? And I could, at the time, I mean, there's all sorts of things now, but back in my day when we didn't have internet, it was, you know, your options were kind of limited. And actually, when I started escorting, the internet was just being born. Or, you know, at the time when I first started in 2000, I was literally going to the library to do my emails and sitting in the children's corner doing my emails, which worked out well until the big massive penis downloaded on the screen in the children's area. Okay, no. Somebody sent it on an email and I was like, oh, I wonder what this attachment is. So it wasn't commonplace to have a computer in the house at that time. Whereas now I think there's a lot more opportunities with social media and YouTube and things like that. So for me, it was like a get rich quick scheme. And I had a great time doing it, really enjoyed it, got to travel the world, met all sorts of really interesting people, very inspirational people as well. And it kind of made me realize doing that job that I'd got really good social skills, which at school was something I always got told off for, talking too much. So I was always made to feel like talking was a bad thing. I always had to either sit on my own at the front of the class or the back of the class, because it didn't matter who they put me next to, I would talk to them. And actually, you know, when I look back, I think, yeah, that was actually I didn't realize that was a skill, but to be able to communicate with lots of different people and make people feel comfortable is a skill. So I didn't realize that until I started escorting, and people were telling me that you've got a real ability to make people feel comfortable, to feel like I'm telling you things that I've never told anyone before. So I kind of, I really enjoyed doing that job. After 10 years, it was a bit like, where do I go from here? And I made the decision to write my book, my autobiography, The Girlfriend Experience, which got published by John Blake back in 2009. And that was me really sort of putting my face out there and saying, that's it, it's the end of the road for me. And I didn't really have a plan. Didn't really know what I wanted to do, because all I'd done was that for 10 years, and I didn't have any degrees or anything like that. So I went on a bit of, I've been on for the past sort of 12 years or so, quite a journey of exploration, of self-development, of kind of, who am I? What is my purpose? And for a while I was thinking, do I kind of not go down the sex route, or kind of like come away from that? And I was thinking, actually, I know quite a lot about it, and I know a lot about relationships, not just the sex side of things, but the intimacy side of things. And I thought, well, actually, there is a way there to help people with their relationships. But maybe I can get in there and help people before they make that decision to book an escort. You know, maybe I can help couples that are struggling with communication, that are struggling with intimacy. And kind of that's the direction I've kind of gone in.
I absolutely love that. And the fact of, again, there's a few things here I just want to pick there straight away for the audience, because you've given a life lesson straight away. You've only been going, I think, 4 minutes in, and already there's like life lessons there for the audience to pick on. The first thing is the fact that you noticed that even in this situation, which wasn't ideal, again, you said you absolutely loved it. And in any situation you're in, you can make the best out of anything. And so, as you said now, especially nowadays with OnlyFans, the internet, Instagram, again, I know a lot of people that are in that industry, like OnlyFans, sex workers. It's a lot more accepted now. When back in the day when you were doing it, it wasn't so much. However, you were able to learn some amazing skills, which have now helped you build an amazing career outside of that. So for people listening to this that maybe aren't in the situation you want to be in for the rest of their lives, you can be developing your skills that are actually going to help you further on down the line. That's a real critical thing that you said there. And in fact, you had no plan, and you were just like, well, do you know what? This isn't what I want to do forever. I'm stopping it. I'm putting a full stop. You actually wrote a book. It's like, this is it. I'm done. I'm going to figure it out. So I think a lot of people stay in situations, either relationships, jobs, whatever it is, and have got no plan. But straight away, you were like, I don't want to do this forever. I'm going to take the leap. That's a massive thing for audience listening to that. So I just want to unpick some of the things there. But for me, I love the fact you said like your experience with this when it comes to the sexual side of things, the relationship side of things, the fact that you are hands-on, and the fact of you sort of figured out that, oh, do you know what I mean? There might be people more qualified than me with these degrees and blah, 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 blah. But relationship-wise, they're a disaster. Sex-wise, they're vanilla as fuck. But you've clearly got this wealth of experience and knowledge, and you can bring that now to help so many people. It's like me and my depression. Best thing that ever happened to me, because it's allowed me to do what I'm doing now. You doing that has allowed you to help people, and you actually fucking get it. I think it's unbelievable.
Oh.
Blessing in disguise. Her book, by the way, like I said, The Girlfriend Experience, is available on Amazon. So I checked before we started. It is available on Amazon.
You did?
I checked. So it's on Amazon. So again,
I'd rather people got it from me.
Oh, can you get it direct from your website?
Yes.
So
British sex ed. Okay.
Yeah, I'll get Mikey to put the link on that across the bottom of the screen. Cool. But like I said, we're not going to spend too much time talking about that. We're going to move on now. But if anyone wants to hear more about that side of Rebecca, again, get the book. It's there for you. So my next question, segue into this. Why do you think that sex is such a taboo topic when fundamentally we are all here on this planet due to sex, but yet we're petrified of talking about it? Why is that?
Well, actually, strictly speaking, not all of us anymore.
Okay, yeah, this is true. Yeah, no, you're
we
completely
do
correct.
all sorts of things with test tubes.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I get what you're saying. I think people get people get shame around sex, usually passed down from parents, caregivers, their attitudes towards sex can be sort of passed down to children. Religions, there's a lot of kind of rules around religion, and it could be certain situations that's made somebody feel shameful or embarrassed, so that they kind of like, they don't want to kind of talk about it. I think, and we're Brits, aren't we? We're notoriously prudish with our stiff upper lips and all that. So I think we're getting there. I think I think young people today are a lot more open than they were. I was going to say it again, back in my day. I think there's a lot more out there. I think we're definitely moving in the right direction, because there's so much education out there on social and educators on social media, and people like Hannah Witten that are doing really great stuff, connecting with a younger audience. But I don't know. I think it's I definitely think it's sort of passed down.
I think same thing. Like some of my previous guests have said the same sort of thing, where it's like what you pick up from your parents is it's so profound that parents can make a passing comment about something, even to the fact of like not wanting to be naked around their kids, or again just smaller things like that, and then more to make people feel shame of their body. And I think it's such you don't really realize until you're later on in life how much your childhood affects you. And again, I'm going to be completely honest on this podcast, like I am with this. And I can't remember if I said this when I spoke to you on Friday or not. But for me, I was a virgin up until I was 16 years old. And there was a really popular girl who went to another school. And the popular guy at school, who was one of my best friends, fancied her, but she fancied me. So me being a typical lad at that age, I've been bullied, wasn't that confident. I then picked her over my friend. She then ended up breaking up with me because I wouldn't have sex with her a couple months down the line. And she then went on MSN back in the day. Remember MSN Messenger? Yeah, MSN. She went on MSN Messenger with this guy and basically was like, I'm going to go and have sex with him because you won't have sex with me. That then started my escapade of being a massive fuckboy and just thinking, right, all hot girls, just like guys, to sleep with loads of girls. So I was like, right, I need to start having sex. And that was basically it. It was I only discovered this when I was about 25, 26. And that had basically held me for about 10 years. And I didn't realize the profound impact that actually had. So again, that was just from a girlfriend experience. But
I mean, and that is, from her perspective,
oh, I know.
That's the rejection, isn't it? That's the rejection. Like, what's wrong with me? Like, you've made me feel really shit by rejecting me. So I'm going to go and sleep with your mate, because I feel like shit that you've rejected me. So there's like, it's so interesting. And then we really kind of look at this in NLP, like how we filter things. Like, both of you had your own sort of, we're sort of ended up feeling rejection in a completely different way. She
has no idea that how much that affected me. Absolutely no idea. No. And I didn't know. Obviously, at the time, it sucked. Don't get me wrong, but I didn't realize subconsciously how much that had actually held me sort of grasp. So I just wanted to hit in there my personal thing. So just to sort of, so I know exactly what you're talking about with that. And something else you hit there about the younger generation. I'm interested in your view on this. What's your view on pornography? Because I feel now that that's had a massive impact, both positively and negatively, on the younger generation. It's so readily available, on their openness to have sex. Yet, I believe there's also a very negative thing around pornography, not necessarily just the industry, but the psychological impact it has on people. Is that a thing? Have I made that up? Or
no? I completely agree with you. There's a time, there's a place for it, with consenting adults that are over 18. I'm not going to turn around and say porn shouldn't we shouldn't have porn. The problem is, I believe that a lot of the failure is that we're not giving the right sex education at school. We're not giving the kids the right sex education from home. So what they're doing is they're looking for their sex education. They're looking online and they're looking at porn. And obviously the problem with porn is that that's not real. And so they have young lads having very high expectations of what they expect from sex. They expect it to look like that, to be able to, you know, women to be all, you know, all shaved off, you know, everything neat, everything perfect, you know, no embarrassing noises. You know, they expect it to be what they're seeing. And then the on the flip side of that, you've got girls, young girls, that are thinking, oh, I've got to have anal sex because that's what people do, you know, and or I've got to do this because that's what's expected of me. Actually, one of my, on my YouTube channel, Rebecca GFE, one of my most watched videos is where I talk to porn stars about sex, and they are all trying their best to explain how it's not real. Like Lindsay Dawn McKenzie saying to me, I don't have sex like this at home. I want to be made love to. It's not real. That, you know, Daisy Rocks and like top porn stars, all of them saying this is not. Do not get your education from porn. That's it's not a place to educate people. And then I getting an increase in rise of lads coming to, you know, younger lads coming to me with sexual dysfunction because they've almost desensitized themselves to the point where they don't know how to hold an intimate space with someone. It's all about a quick gratification, and it's not about building a connection or building intimacy. So yeah, the dangers of porn are very real. And I don't really know how I do know one of the ways would be that we get we step up the education and get things right in the education system. And also as parents, that we're choosing not to make sex a taboo subject. I mean, I've got a 3-year-old, you know, we share the bath. She knows all the body parts. She knows what they are. I'm very open with her about, you know, vagina, like clitoris. She knows these things. She sees that I've always got sex toys around the house, and she's like, "What's this?" Like, "Oh, it's an adult toy. It's a toy for adults." I don't want her to ever feel shameful about her body. I think there's this kind of belief that, oh, if we tell them too much, then they're going to want to go and do it. And it's actually
the opposite.
Well, we're not telling them, and they're going and doing it. So, like, really, what have we got to lose by actually trying to? Actually, I feel like if I'd have had better education around, really about, I guess, self-respect and learning about relationships and intimacy, if I'd have had more education and more guidance on that, I probably wouldn't have been as promiscuous as I was. I think it's really, I don't think that increases. We've got one of the highest rates for teenage pregnancy here in the UK. Whereas you look at countries like Amsterdam and Sweden and places that are very much more open than sex, they're way lower. Their teenage pregnancy is way lower. So, you know, we need to we can take something from that. They are obviously doing something right. So I think the education is key. And I say that it's not a case of, oh, let's put it on the school. It's got to be home and school as well. And teaching consent is so important. You know, that's something that we can teach kids. As young toddlers, you know, how many times have you been forced to kind of kiss somebody that you didn't want to kiss goodbye, or hug somebody you didn't want to hug goodbye? You know, this is so important. Like with my little one, she's not very huggy a lot of the time, and I never force her to hug anyone. But some people really don't take no for an answer, and I have to sort of say to her, yeah, you know, you're right to have your boundaries. You say no. So, you know, I think it's age appropriate education around sex, relationships, boundaries, bodies, understanding our bodies, and exploring them.
I completely agree. I think the thing with this is now we're going to hit on some things with like the younger kids nowadays, because especially when it comes to sex education side of stuff, there's kids now you hear, they're like 12, 13 years old talking about sexual stuff. And I'm thinking, I didn't even have a clue, not a clue what that was. Maybe you'd see like, you know, the newspapers used to get thrown in bushes and had a bit of boob, and you'd be like, oh, what's that? But they're now, and I'm thinking, but then the problem with that is if you've then got a male who's got an older brother and has got access to pornography or something like that, but then a girl that hasn't, again, as you said, setting the boundaries of what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, and all that sort of stuff. I think it's such an interesting topic. And when it comes to the porn star side of stuff, again, I've got a few friends at porn stars. I've actually trying to get one on the podcast, but just that whole industry, as you said, to just debunk it, because it's just not real. And one of the next things I was going to touch on there, to move into the next thing I was to talk about, was the energy aspect of things. Because I know full well that I've suffered with this before, where you struggle to actually make a connection with someone because you've had it so much a certain way that actually then when you meet someone that you like, you're very unfamiliar with that intimacy side of things. I openly admit I've massively struggled with that, massively. But it's all to do, again, now I'm learning about it's energy, how everything's energy, and it's a sacred space, it's a sacred act. And I basically essentially just abused it over the years, and I'm now paying the price for it, which I mean, had such a good conversation on Friday. But do you think then, because I feel like a lot of people nowadays struggle sometimes to actually achieve orgasm, both males and females. That's not necessarily a common problem, but you've got females that don't necessarily know how to pleasure themselves, and then expecting guys to know. You've got guys that have got absolutely no idea the difference between a vulva and a vagina, got no fucking idea. They ain't got a clue about the clitoris. They've got no idea like what they like themselves. And basically you've got this shit show of two people that don't understand their own bodies, expecting other people to pleasure them. So why do you think people do struggle so much, like when it comes to achieving orgasm, both by themselves and when they're in a sexual environment?
I think that we are just the environment that we live in, the day-to-day rush that we are swept up in now, with everybody's so busy, everybody's on their phones, everybody's always on social media. I talk to couples and they're in bed next to each other on their phones. People are disconnecting from themselves and through other people. And I always find it interesting, the irony of social media, because yes, it's connecting with people, but it's not like real intimacy. You're not really getting that intimate connection. So I think that there's people are just, and people are more stressed now than they were. You know, the more technology we've got, the more stressed people become, and people just aren't taking the time to relax. You know, they've got kids, but nowadays both are often two people in a relationship are both working, and then you've got the kids, and then you've got your house to run and all the social life, and people are juggling so many things that I think they just find it difficult to switch off. And it just you get into a routine, I guess, and people going to bed at different times, or they're going to bed at the same time but they're on the phone, or they're thinking about what they need to do for tomorrow. And we just need to slow down and just take time to connect with our bodies. I mean, I've just written a because I'm getting more women coming to me with sexual dysfunction now than I ever have before, so struggling to orgasm, and I've just written a hypnotherapy script to encourage orgasm. Now, that's not me giving them an orgasm, so to speak, but I actually talk them through the process of how to relax their whole body and how to facilitate and bring on orgasm without any physical touch. It's like, we can do it. Our bodies know how to do it. It's just you have to allow it, you have to want it, you have to be in tune with your body and not disconnected from it. And maybe this is something that you can relate to too, as talking about your experience, that I spent a lot of time disconnecting from my body through having sex by just performing for people, that I very much learned to I learned to disconnect. I learned that maybe a similar blueprint to you. I learned it from bullying, which then came to promiscuous sex, which I disconnected from, to then escorting, which I disconnected from. So yeah, I think it's really important that we actually connect to our bodies. That we honor our bodies and the great gift that they can give us, which is this sexual pleasure, which is just, you know, and also it's a huge stress reliever, like orgasm. So yeah, getting to know your body, touching your body. I mean, it's not a case of, you can't just say to someone, right, go and touch your body, find out what you like. you know, especially for women, sometimes you have to set the scene and give yourself permission is the first thing. It's not, if you're doing it and you're like, oh God, it's not going to work, you know, but maybe reading an erotic novel, maybe putting on some candles, you know, something that you know is going to get you turned on, listening to a podcast or something that like a sexy erotica thing, watching a bit of porn, something that gets you going, and just kind of, yeah, just invite pleasure, and just have a little, just create an environment, put some nice music on, without expectation. I think that's another thing that stops people from orgasming, is that pressure to perform. And I've certainly, that's happened to me, you know, feeling like, oh God, this is expected of me. And also people that I'm working with, you know, you get the guys saying, well, I wanted to orgasm because I want to know, you know, I really want to give her that. And she's saying, well, I really want to orgasm, but because I know that he wants me to, and I'm chasing it. And it's like, it just doesn't happen. So I think you've got to kind of be in the moment, and take that, sometimes that expectation of orgasm out of it, and just see sex as a bit more of an exploratory experience and journey, and an opportunity to connect and to feel.
It reminds me very much when you're talking there, a podcast I did at the very, very start of this podcast series with a therapist called Scarlett, and we're talking about meditation. And the way that you just described that, then achieving an orgasm, is basically how she described approaching meditation. You've got to allow yourself, relax, and want no expectations. And every single time you go to that cushion, it's going to be different, and that's okay. And it's just like, sometimes you're going to be straight in the zone, other times it's going to take a bit longer. And just when you're talking, that's thinking, it's basically meditation, but with your body, and you get an amazing thing at the end of it. So let's say from a female point of view, because obviously with the males are a lot easier to say actually stimulate. You just do one action. For a female, would you recommend that they start off with their hands, toys, mix it up? Like if they're trying to actually explore themselves to unwind, is there something they say these are do's, these are don'ts, or is it whatever feels right for them at the time?
I would definitely say whatever feels right for them at the time. I think, you know, some people might have a little bit of a thing about kind of a bit of an aversion to toys, and that's absolutely fine. You know, just there's nothing wrong with using your hands. You know, you can, people that are chasing that high and that kind of hammering of the dots, see, they absolutely love it.
The lights all flashing and like going, using all the power in the house.
Yeah. Whole house is shaking. You know, some people are chasing that high, and that's fine, but it doesn't have to be all those bells and whistles. It can just be about taking your time, and not trying to, not sort of lying there thinking, right, I need to give myself an orgasm, You know, that's the wrong way to approach it. Exactly what you were saying then about meditation, just get in tune with your body, just notice how you like to be touched, notice how it feels, you know, and just and take your time with it. Toys, if you want to bring them into play, great, but don't feel like it. People shouldn't feel like they have to do that. There is no right and wrong with sex between consenting adults. You know, it is really about what works for you. And if you don't know, just try things. Maybe just try and step a little bit outside of your comfort zone, because you know that's where usually the growth happens. But don't feel pressure to do, you know.
I think that you basically said about your story there, and my story definitely is about disconnecting from my body. That when you were talking about your journey with that, you literally was like you were talking about me. I definitely did that. And my biggest thing, again, be interested to talk about this. It was not on the notes. Some things that I have found with this is when it comes to chasing the dragon. So I'm speaking purely from personal experience here. Is that the more that I've ended up doing things, pushing boundaries, pornography, whatever route you want to go down, it just ended up sort of, especially my darker days, I was like almost chasing the dragon a bit more. It then pushed the boundary up more and more and more and more. Like, oh, what else can I do? What else can I do? What else can I do? Just do again, this is more of a personal question, but I think some people, probably not as many people as I probably feel comfortable with, would say is that a good or a bad thing? When you say about pushing boundaries, how far should you be pushing boundaries? How do you know if you push boundaries too far? Because I'm trying to get the whole thing with the disconnect from the body. Like, how do you push boundaries and not disconnect?
I think, well, I would say if you've got like a tick list and you're just going through the doing, then you're already you're disconnecting, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
Through each, you're not actually fully being present, even though you're pushing the boundary.
Mm-hmm.
You're still not being fully present.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. Yeah.
It's the thing that you're chasing in front of you is actually there.
Mm. And that's no, I've never had a list. I've never had a list, but it's just like you get that good high.
I didn't mean.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying.
If you're thinking, oh yeah, I've done that, right, now what next can I do? It's a little bit about what that podcast was that I listened to that you did with that happiness doctor.
Oh,
it's
Andy
like,
Cope,
that didn't quite fulfill you, so let's go to what's the next level, what's the next level, what's the next level. You're not finding fulfillment or the satisfaction or the connection in where you're at, because it's always like, what next?
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like it's there's this holy grail or something at the end of it, and you feel like you've got to kind of keep pushing a little bit more to get out of that. So I don't know. No, I don't think people should feel a need to try loads of, like, when I'm talking about stepping outside the comfort zone, I was really kind of referring to a very kind of basic level with people that are maybe kind of like, oh, I don't want to use a toy, like that they might suggest that, oh, let's, they used to advertise in the 70s as massages in the back of the Contact magazine. Just get something that's relatively inoffensive and just, you don't have to put it on a sexual part. So I had more in mind that, but pushing boundaries where she.
I just want to clarify, because I don't want people to freak out. Do you know pushing boundaries? People might have been like, oh my God, what? Then I just want to relate to myself and sort of go there to clarify.
Yeah, because I think that's a different thing, and that's your stuff, isn't it, that's going on there. I think what I do think is that if people have got kinks that they want to explore, that it's really good to have communication with your partner. Being able to have open conversations around sex is what we need to be able to have good, deep, fulfilling sex. If you're going to be in a relationship for years and think, but actually I want to dress as a woman and I'm not getting that, I'm not getting that need for, or I've got to sneak around behind my partner's back, or it's just something that I've got to hide, then you're just not being true to yourself. And we all deserve to be happy. And whilst the partner that you're with might not be into your kink, it then does give you an opportunity to say, like, well, okay, right, where do we go from here? Do I then find another relationship where I can explore that kink? Because there are so many kinks out there. There's nothing, as long as it's consenting adults, there is somebody out there that's going to have the same kink. I mean, people come to me with this almost feeling shame and embarrassment around kinks, and actually it shouldn't be that way. It's your kink is your kink, and you're not on your own. So being able to have conversations, and I think the fear for a lot of people around those conversations is that they're going to be judged. So, if you're in a relationship and somebody comes to you with, and brings up the fact that they've got a kink, like, just, all I would say is just please try not to be judgmental about it. And if it's not for you, then, it's okay to express that to you. You definitely don't need to feel obliged to fulfill somebody's kink if it's not something that interests you. You might, when we've done the previous sex pots podcast, we've had stories of listeners, and people have like confided in a kink, and then like the partner said, oh yeah, I've been thinking about that for years. And it's like there's all the years that they could have been actually doing the thing that they wanted to do. So yeah, I think we just need open communication around sex, a willingness, I guess, to stop getting things getting boring. That's really what we want, isn't it? Spontaneity. When you kind of get stuck in a rut and it's like, oh, it's Tuesday at 9 o'clock. it's time. It's time. Or you come down wearing your red negligee, which means that's the sign. It's time. I think spontaneity is really important, but I realise logistically it's not always possible, is it? Because we've got busy lives, we've got children. But I think when you do get those little windows opportunity, really surprising him, her, or however they identify, really surprising them is that's the kind of thing that keeps things exciting.
I knew we were going.
Haven't I? But I feel like I've answered two of your questions.
You have, but like I said, I knew we were going to go off on tangents like this. I just wanted to let you roll with it because you've hit so many key points on that. I just want to. One of the questions I was going to say here about was communicating about fetishes, kinks, and all that sort of stuff. I want to hit it from 2 points. First of all, when you're on the dating, so when you're dating someone, do you feel it's important to articulate if you're into certain things and that you need certain things fulfilled in your sexual life? Is it important to get that out of the way early on? That's my first question. And the second thing is, when you're in a relationship, how do you go about approaching that subject? Because as you said, the shame, the embarrassment, especially, let's say, for example, is a man wants to dress up as a woman. Again, I know plenty of people that are into stuff like that. Again, we had a conversation about where we actually had the same sex exhibition event as each other back in the day. It's bizarre. So I said, for my audience that don't know, I'm very much into this, like this field of work. Like nothing goes past me. So, but let's say I'm just a normal person. I'm a successful business person, and I dress up as a woman, and I've got kids and a wife. How would you approach that? So 2 different questions there. When you're first starting out and you've got this thing that that is really important to you, and you kind of need it in a relationship, how early would you articulate that with your partner? And then secondly, if you're in a relationship and you've got this thing, you're really ashamed, almost embarrassed. We know you don't have to be, but that could be almost potentially devastating for somebody. How would you then approach that with your partner? Is there a set sort of thing you'd recommend them go through? Would you drip feed it, or would you be like, here it is?
Wow. Okay. So obviously it's not quite as simple.
Oh, I know. Listen. We only got an hour on a podcast. I mean, I know it's not that simple. It's a whole thing.
Yeah, I think the first question was if you're so if you were just starting dating, then I do think it's really important that you bring up kinks early on. And I think that's a conversation that can be had before you have sex. Like, I'm into a bit of kink, how do you feel about that? Oh, well, what's your kink? This is what it is. How do you feel about that? Could be as simple as that. I think, don't waste your time going down the dating and starting sleeping with some. I mean, yes, of course, some people might. It's not about that somebody's definitely into it. So, somebody say, I've never heard of that before, never heard of that kink. I don't really know how I feel about it, actually, but I'm quite open to sort of give it a go. You might get that sort of. It's not like you need somebody experienced in the same kink. But I would sort of, I guess the safer way to go about it would be if you have a specific kink, is to be looking at more dating websites or places like FetLife, things where you're meeting like-minded people, that you're more likely to meet somebody who's into kink if you go to more specialized route. But definitely, I think it's something. It depends how important your kink is to you as well, doesn't it? Because if you've got a kink, but you just think, well, I'm not really that bothered about it. I'm quite happy to live my life never doing anything about that kink and just having it as like a porn thing to watch, then it doesn't really necessarily matter about sharing it, does it? So early on. But it's more if you want that person to potentially get involved in your kink. You want to actively do whatever it is you want to do, then that's the thing I think to be talked about. And we should not be none of us should be sex shaming anybody, whatever their thing is, whether it's dressing up in nappies or having sex with exhaust pipes. It's like everybody's got a we're not expected to understand. I mean, that's the whole point. It's it's a kink. It's it's a specialized thing. So, you know, just I think all of us need to do our little bit to be less judgmental around different fetishes, and not to make people feel weird or like there's something wrong with them. Like you are not your how you have sex. That's not like who you are as a person. That is just something that you enjoy. You're not defined by, you know, your sexual kink or how you like to have sex. And I
think it's a big thing. This is judgment. It's so again, when we talk about sex exhibition, just to put in a bit of context, it's not what you think. It wasn't just a room full of people having sex. It's basically like an expo for basically people selling sex toys, sex lingerie. People walk around in fetish wear. They're burlesque dancers. It was absolutely incredible. I don't know if you remember, if you went to the burlesque night. Did you see the burlesque dancers on one of the nights?
Yeah, I was only there for the day.
Oh, because I actually got dragged up on stage and was made to do a striptease, completely impromptu, with the burlesque dancer lady. Oh my! Honestly, I actually died. That was Rachel's fault. I'm your friend Rachel. She's the one that dragged me up there. Absolute nightmare. But to put into context of that, it's understanding that I think a lot of people, in my understanding of it, is that they judge things because they don't understand them. And I said, when you're in that sort of environment and you're walking around this massive like old factory and you've got all these things there and you realize, bloody hell, like there's a whole world out here that people don't even know about. You've got people that are walking around literally pretending to be animals. Bizarre. But this world exists. And I think so. I think people are very quick to judge because they don't understand it.
Yeah, but I don't even think you need to understand it.
Just accept this. Yeah, it is what it is.
It is what it is. You don't need, unless you want to get you know, educate yourself, great, go ahead. But I don't think some people can't get their head around why somebody would want to do whatever it is. So that's fair enough. I think just get to a place of acceptance. Exactly what you just said then. It is what it is. That's what they like.
It makes me really sad that some people really, especially when it comes to sex, this is why I wanted to get you on the podcast, because it makes me sad that a lot of people lead very unfulfilled sex lives and they don't have to. It makes me really, really sad. Either people are afraid, they're either afraid they've got this kink that they want to try. It could even, and again, I'm not going to disrespect anybody here. It could be something so simple and small that they just want to try with their partner. Something like, I don't know, nipple clamps, or I don't know, just something. And that's their thing. But they're so petrified of saying it. And then their girlfriend is like, got all these sex toys they've never used before, also with their partner, because they're afraid that, and it's just, and then you've got guys that, again, do it at the weekend, want to walk around, pretend to be dogs on the floor. And again, they're afraid to talk to the partner. It makes me really, really sad. And when I first spoke to you on Friday, I'm just so glad that you are how you are, because you're just like me. You don't give a fuck. You're so open and honest. And that's why I'm trying to be transparent here on the podcast, because I always try and be my audience. But it's just okay to have whatever it is that you have. Just communicate it with people. Don't live in that place of fear, judgment, worry, because like I said, I've done it before with my past. I was so ashamed of the things, and I'm just like, I've got nothing to be ashamed of. I've got nothing to be ashamed of. It is what it is. It's all consensual. It's fine. I think a lot of people are either want to explore, can't, or have explored and just a bit like, ugh. So talking about the communication then. So let's say me and you are in a relationship. I've got this hidden kink. And so I really want to, like, right, I don't really know how she's going to deal with this. How is the best way to approach that? How would you do it?
So if I was you, let's do it the way around.
Okay,
I know I've got this kink. So I'd say, right, Daniel, I was reading this thing the other day in the magazine, you know, in like Now magazine, and it was talking, there was this couple, and he was really, and she really wanted to be like raped by a partner. And I was like reading it, I was thinking, oh, what do you think about that? What do you think? What, have you got an opinion on that? I'd open it, I'd do it in that kind of way. Let's have a discussion about it, because somebody I know, or I've seen it somewhere, I've read it somewhere. Let's have a discussion about that, and kind of, you know, just test the water. Oh God, I wouldn't feel comfortable doing that. Oh no, because I was kind of like thinking that, you know, it might be quite hot. You know, and then you know, it's an opportunity for discussion, but you're not actually specifically talking about each other initially. I think that's a good, it's certainly a way to gauge how your partner is going to respond.
Yep.
Should it be, hey, this is something I've got to tell you.
Yep.
I am into it. It's a more of a softer way just to gauge where they're at with a certain kink or a certain thing.
And I suppose you could then go back to that, and let's say your partner's reaction is like completely like, oh, you then leave that, and then a few weeks, oh, so I've been thinking about that thing I saw.
Yeah.
So and so you sort of like almost like, oh, it's been playing on my mind a little bit. And then you see if it's sunk on their mind and stuff. And again, really important when we talk about this, like consensual stuff. Like again, I know with that sort of stuff, like I know exactly where you're going with that. All consensual stuff, like has to be consensual people.
Well, yeah, again, that's the whole point.
Yes, exactly. But people hear that word and they get a bit freaked out, and rightly so. But in this situation we're talking about, it's literally a case of. Can you explain what that means then in this context? Because I know what it means, but people.
Consensual unconscious. I can't remember.
Central conscious. Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying.
Oh, yeah.
We'll flash it across the bottom of the screen, Mikey. Yeah.
Yeah. I should do. I think it's.
Yeah, stand there. Yeah.
So, I mean, consent is it's key, isn't it? Now, there are no boundaries between consenting adults, and consent is not something. Consent can be withdrawn at any time.
100%.
So that's the thing about consent, is it doesn't mean, oh well, I said that I would, now I've got to. That's not how it works. Consent is all the way through whatever sexual experience you're having. It's about, and that's where you really need the connection with your partner. You need to know how they're feeling. It's like, I've been in situations when I was escorting, seeing couples where, and then it seems to be the biggest fantasy that men want two women. And so very often the women will say, oh yeah, okay, just to please the blokes. So I used to, when I was escorting, I'd say, well, I'd like to speak to the woman. And so I spoke to this lady and I said, I just want to check that you're okay with this. This is something that you want. And she was like, oh yeah, yeah. So I went along, and it was just so awkward because clearly he was saying, no, I want you to go down on her. And she didn't want to. And I was like, you don't have to. And like, this is just a really horrible, awkward situation. It was very clear that she was just doing it to please him. And I just can't stress that enough. Just please don't do that. Just talk. If it's, at any point, like she should have been able to say, I don't feel comfortable with this. And then I could just walk away. It's like at that point, their relationship, her feelings didn't matter to him. It was just like, come on, we've got her here, we've paid for her. Let's, this is going to happen. And it was awful. It was a really, really uncomfortable situation. So yeah, consent. You can have safe words. You can change your mind. You could just change your mind. You could be all planned to have whatever kind of sex you're going to have, and then just be like, oh, I don't want. It's got to be.
The mood changes. The mood changes. You could say, vice versa, as a female, right? You want two blokes. You get there and you're like, I'm not really feeling it today.
Yeah,
that's fine. I think that's what I'm so glad you said that, because that's one of the biggest things.
Mind. I don't want to do it. Like, actually feel uncomfortable. Yeah. I thought I was going to be okay with this, but I'm not.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things. If you're exploring things you never explored before, that you don't know how you're going to respond in that situation, you think it seems like a really, really good idea. But actually, as a female, if you've never actually gone down another female before, that could be quite fucking daunting, especially if you're not drunk and all these other things are potentially fucking hell. Like I completely agree. I've been in situations similar to that where the whole thing's just uncomfortable, and you're just like, what the fuck is going on here? Like, it's just completely. I'm really, really glad that you said that. Also, someone I want to pick up on here as well. We mentioned it earlier on about like fetishes that go on websites, and it's made me remember a point here. It's really important if you're going to explore some stuff, especially on the darker side of stuff, that you meet these people in a safe place first, so they're not fucking crazy psycho lunatics. I just want to put that out because I've had a friend that had a bad experience with that, and it wasn't good. But it's like it should be safe. You should feel safe, and no point should feel uncomfortable, awkward. Sex meant to be something that's fucking amazing, and enjoyed by all sorts of people. So I'm really glad he's put on that safety side of things, because it's a massive thing I think a lot of people overlook.
Definitely. I mean, so if people are having one night stands and things like that, there's all kinds of you can't consent when you're drunk. You can't consent when you're high. There isn't a way to, the only way to consent is if you are, sober, and and you can also not consent with your body language. You could be saying yes, but be like, that is still a no. So yeah, it is kind of it's a really important area, because I know, and probably you've done the same. I've done things in the past that I probably felt like it was obligated of me, and not because I really wanted to.
I just want to link people to episode number 60 that we did when it comes to understanding sexual violence. We spoke a lot about consent and sexual assault and being drunk, all that sort of stuff, about saying no, the right way of going about it. So again, anyone wants to learn out more about that, because it's really important. Episode number 60, a woman called Jessica Teresi, that's what she specializes in. So again, basically the point you hit on there about being drunk, parties, all that sort of stuff, and basically how to protect yourself. So please go check the episode out if you haven't, and there's something that's sort of like potentially triggering for you. So I'm really glad we brought that up, because I didn't want to go through this whole episode and then oh shit, we didn't talk about anything like safety wise. I think it's really important with that.
Obviously condoms as well, safe sex.
Yeah.
While we're going there.
No, yeah, but I feel like, again, there's a lot of taboo around that as well, one way or another with people. So we've covered a lot more topics here that I was expecting us to cover. Like, as you said, you just went bash, 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 and like basically smashed up the whole podcast in one thing. I was like, fucking hell. So again, it's a question I normally ask to a lot of my guests, but I've kind of reworded it for you. And it's hilarious. My regular listeners will know that I ask this to all my guests, and I've made it especially for you. But you actually thought I was asking a personal question, which made me laugh quite a lot. But let's say, I
still think it might be.
But again, complete transparency here. I'll be working with you. I said this before. Like me and Rebecca, we're going to be working on some stuff like hypnotherapy wise, and I sort of had a session with her on Friday. So complete transparency to the audience. Like, I'll be working with Rebecca in the future with stuff. So yeah. So, and again, it's bizarre. It's interesting with this. And I think I know full well what you're doing, by the way, while we're doing this podcast, because I've been a lot more open in this podcast than I intended to be. So I know that we spoke before. Well, I knew that when we're going down this rabbit hole with the stuff that I've done in my life, it was inevitable that I would have to give some personal examples, because I don't want my audience to somehow think that I'm being incongruent with the whole point of this podcast. I'm trying to be congruent with who I am. And I'm very open and honest about depression. So why would I not be open and honest about sex? I've brought you on to have an open, honest conversation about sex. Why would I not then be the same? So it's really important for me that I am who I am. So that it's been really important for me to discuss that. But the question was, what advice would you give somebody right now that does feel stuck and out of control in their life, both sexually and in a relationship? So it's sort of two things there. But what would you do if they're completely stuck, feel out of control? What advice would you give them from like a therapist point of view?
Wow. That's a very expansive question.
It is. But the floor is yours.
The floor is mine, right? No pressure. Ground yourself, I guess, would be my answer to any time when you feel like you're out of control. Is to get grounded. I would, if it's regarding a relationship, I would be checking in that it's not a toxic relationship, because obviously if it's a toxic relationship, then you want to look at what you need to do to get out of it. If it's not a toxic relationship, but you need to work on some stuff, then exactly what we've been talking about in the podcast: communication. Be aware of if you've got a partner that's not being responsive to communication. Be sort of aware of like gaslighting and things like that. Sometimes people don't actually realize that they're in a toxic relationship, but you should be able to speak adult to adult with your partner and say, I've got an issue with this, or I want to talk to you about this, and this is how I feel, without them then blowing up and making a big thing about it, so that you kind of go back in your box. It's really important that you are able to communicate your feelings and talk adult to adult. And what was the rest of the question? Was so long. I don't even know if I've answered.
I think I made it long. Basically, just like what advice do you give someone that feels stuck and out of control, like either sexually or in a relationship?
Yeah. So ground yourself, get control. Come for hypnotherapy. But no, seriously, there is help and there is support out there. If you recognize that you're in a place where you don't feel in control, then do whatever it takes to find a therapist that you feel that you can connect to and that can help you through it. I think there has been a real sort of stigma, especially for Brits around having therapy. It was just, for years, Americans have always, oh yeah, my therapist. But I think it's finally turning a corner a little bit here in the UK, and people are realizing that, oh, actually it's really healthy to have a therapist, like the benefits of having one. And and I've been on my own personal journey with it. So I would always recommend, I'd also say that it don't get put off. If you go and see somebody and you don't have a good experience with it, don't just say, oh, I went to see a counsellor and it didn't work out, so I'm not going to bother with that. It really is about finding the right person for you. Mm-hmm. So take the time to speak to different people and yeah, you're choosing them and they've got to choose you as well. It's like a relationship of sorts, really, that you embark on with the therapist. So yeah, I mean, it's sort of changed my life having therapy and also learning to be a therapist. That's where the passion for it comes from. So, if you're feeling out of control, it doesn't have to be like that. There are ways to get back in control, and you get back in control by taking action. Mm-hmm. No, by doing something, by reaching out and saying, holding your hands up and going, I'm struggling right now and I can't do this on my own, and actually going out there and finding somebody to help and support you. There is no shame in therapy. I think we should all be having. We've all got trauma. We've all got something that could be gained from having therapy. And I realise that it can be quite an investment for people. But actually, people invest in so many things that are so bad for them, whether it's drugs, alcohol, and also there's a lot of good things that are maybe avoidance things. But actually, our mental health, like if your mental health isn't in check, then actually you are actually putting your whole livelihood at risk, especially when you're running your own business. If you're dealing with stress, you're not dealing with your shit, basically. You're at risk of your body shutting you down and going, nah, you're not dealing with it, so I'm going to give you, you're going to break a leg, have a heart attack, do whatever. Your body will find a way to incapacitate you, to stop you. And that is an opportunity, an invitation to then, okay, that's a message to like do some work, to do some like some inner work, some mental health stuff. So yeah, just don't let it get to that stage. Invest in your mental health. It's so important. You cannot look after other people effectively if you're not looking after yourself. And looking after yourself is, I get so many people coming to me that are, oh yeah, and they really care about everybody else, and that's great, but one of the things that I learned is, you've got to know if you don't think you've got needs and you're so busy looking after everybody else, then that's a dangerous place to be in, because you have got needs, everybody's got needs, and if you don't know what they are, then they're being suppressed. And that is, where you can get problems with mental health, problems with illness, things like that. You put everybody else first, you teach them that you come second.
This is why I loved asking this question, because that was absolute gold. But again, so many things there, again, that you touched on. The mental health thing, especially, because as we know, and this is how you work through, I want to touch on, first of all, the therapy side of stuff. Andy Cope on the podcast mentioned about he doesn't believe in therapy because it perpetuates things. I agree with that to an extent, depending on what kind of therapy it is. Because if it sort of leads you into a pile of shit, makes you feel like absolute dog shit and gives you nothing to help you get out of it, that's not the kind of therapy I'd ever recommend. However, therapists like Rebecca, we've got Scarlett, there's loads of other types of therapy that isn't the bog standard thing you may have experienced that will actually help you get out of that. And I fully believe therapy works, fully believe it. There's some amazing people out there. Like I said, I'm actually investing in Rebecca to help me out with some stuff. So I just want you to understand that just because you tried one person, you don't know what kind of therapy, maybe CBT. Okay, there's loads of different things that aren't just that one style of therapy. So I fully believe in that. I want to cover that. Then when it comes to the mental health side of stuff, again, that's why I've done this podcast. Mental health is absolutely everything. If your life isn't how you want it to be, you have the complete ability to take back control. And if here we're talking specifically about sex, if you're struggling to get an erection, if you're struggling to orgasm, and your mental health is a fucking shit show, your mental health is the thing that can actually help you achieve an orgasm, lead a better sex life, become a better business person, become a better partner, become a better father, become a better. It is the one thing you can do in your life that will just invest in your mental health. Simple as that. I'm not going to fucking go on anymore. Just fucking invest in your mental health. That's why I'm doing this podcast. That's why I've got Mikey here. And again, to bring people like Rebecca on to help you guys become mentally and physically better versions of yourself. Because I promise you, once you invest in your mental health, your life and your outlook will be absolutely infinitely better. Rebecca, thank you for your time. It's been fucking awesome. One thing, do you have any links off the top of your head where people can find out more about some of the stuff we spoke about? I'm going to get you to talk about your social media, but like general sort of sexual stuff.
The Fet Life one is good for people with kinks. There's is it bdsm.org where you can actually fill in a questionnaire and find out what your kinks are.
Awesome. Those two straight away will do. But straight away, even that BDSM one, I think that's a massive thing. Because I know what I mean. That's when it tells you like you're 100% this or 9% that.
That's it.
I feel that the amount of times people have asked me to fill that fucking thing in, it's like, fuck's sake. I just need to keep a copy of it. And it's like, there you go, there it is.
Forever, doesn't it?
Yeah, I know.
You remember what yours is?
Oh, yes, I can. I don't want to say it out on air, but yeah. Most people will guess the top one was dominant, so that's But then the rest of the stuff, I'll leave that to me and you off there. I
got 97% rope bunny.
That's something I've never got into, Shibari. I've always wanted to. So that's something that's because there's a guy that actually does it in Nottingham, I think.
Yes, I went to his rope class. I had him on my Instagram live, Christian Red. And he said that he'll tie me. He'll do like a tie, and we'll be able to do it on the live Instagram. So I've just got to get around to going over to him.
I wanted to do it, but he said I had to have a model, and at the time I didn't have a model. So I was like, there we go, sorted, done.
Win.
Awesome. Fucking up. Didn't know that was the podcast going to go down here. There we go. Where can people find out more about you personally? So obviously we're going to put the link to your book on Amazon at the bottom. I'll get Mikey.
No, you're going to put the link to my
website where it's there.
Amazon take their money, don't they?
They do. So we'll go straight to your website. Where else can people find out more about you? What's your Instagram and what's your actual website?
So I've got two websites. I've got RebeccaDakin.com and I've got thegreatbritishsexpert.co.uk. And I've just changed my Instagram handle to Rebecca__Dakin, just because I feel like people don't realise that the whole sort of the therapy side of things, I'm helping with people with addictions, with anxiety, with just so much other stuff. I don't want to be pigeonholing myself with the sexpert side of things because it's there and it's relevant and I do know my shit, but there's a bit more to it than that. So
it's interesting, isn't it? Once you know one thing about mental health, it can be applied in loads of different things.
Yeah.
It's like once you understand, again, the sexual side of stuff, oh, cool. Well, actually, that works with addiction. It's the same pattern with stuff.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And also I'm on Twitter, Rebecca now __Dakin. And YouTube, Rebecca GFE, because they won't let me change it. But there's some but I've got in fact, a video on there from Jack the Whipper doing a rope tie on me. And it's got God knows how many, it's got like thousands and thousands of views. And everyone's saying, can you do some more, get tied up again?
There we go. Okay. Loads of subscribers going on there. But this is the thing. I love how you are about this because, like I said, there's such a misconception about sex. People are into this sort of stuff. And it's like, just normal fucking people. Just normal fucking people.
Yeah. I mean, in my background, like my mum was very strict. She never ever spoke about sex. She sent us to a convent. Then we went to a Catholic school. So, you know, there is like...
Right. Hit on that. We should have spoke about this earlier on. Right. I'm going to speak completely out of term here. I'm going to speak really, really bluntly. Why is it normally the Catholic girls that are the worst? Like, as in like sexually promiscuous? Is it because they're so suppressed? What is it? Because...
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think I was just me from day dot. I mean, I was one of those literally children that were masturbating. I was very sexually aware from a very, very young age at primary school. So I don't know. I don't think it was the environment. I think it was just me.
In my
brothers and my sister, they didn't turn out like me. So
see, that's interesting. In my experience, genuinely, it's the private Catholic school. If you're going to say to me, who are the girls that are kind of into kinkier stuff, and you have to basically just summarize it, it would be private school or girls' school. Normally Catholic.
Yeah, I think I don't know.
That's in my experience.
Obviously, I didn't choose the school I went to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, but
I don't know if it's like suppression of the fact of, again, from such a young age, everyone's got urges and it's suppressed. Kind of what we said earlier on. If you tell someone they can't do something, it makes them more curious about it and want to go and do it. That was my theory. I don't know if there's anything.
Yeah, I mean, the sex education was appalling at Catholic school. So, yeah.
Don't have it.
yeah, basically. Wait to get married. Only have sex when you want a baby.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you get raped. You just still get the baby anyway. Loads of like fucked up stuff from there. But yeah, no. I think you're right. There is a little bit of a.
I'm on something. Got a hypothesis.
You are.
More practice. Honestly, Rebecca, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you ever so much. Like I said, me and you'll be in contact anyway soon. And I'll take care.
Can I do a little plug for my mug?
Of course you can. What's that?
Tease me, baby.
Oh, but is that on your website?
Yeah.
There you go. I did think when you're holding up, it's like, I'm sure I've seen that picture.
I mean, not so subtly.
Well, that's why I do it. Normally, when I drink my drink, I've got my podcast one here. I'm drinking it, but it's normally when the guest's talking, so no one actually sees it. So I'm just going to just hold it up there. There you go. Shameless plugs all around. There we go.
Maybe we should exchange mugs.
There we go. I'll get you one. Get you a hoodie. Mikey's got one. I'll get you a hoodie.
Oh, and a hoodie as well.
There you go. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.